Good.
Yeah.
We're recording. This is an interview, a follow-up interview actually, with my mom, Gloria Caton, Alwon, Lewis, or any combination thereof. And it's the day after her 70th birthday. We had a wonderful celebration the other day. There is another videotape of that. And we're going to spend a little bit of time asking Gigi questions about early childhood, young adulthood, memories, and advice. You ready, G?
Yes, I am.
Okay, maybe after this is finished, we can go on to some other things that we may want to cover.
Fine.
Okay?
Fine.
All right. David's in the background somewhere, and George Lewis is walking around, so we may see them in the background. Gigi, tell me about early childhood, what you remember.
What I first remember? Well, I remember living on 79th Street. It was a nice one-family house with a driveway. And I remember as a child playing there, playing in the driveway and playing with the kids. And I tell you, we had a nice childhood. The Depression came on many years later.
What years were they? What you were born in?
I was born in 1928.
Okay.
The end of 28,
Mhm.
December 31st, 28.
And so you remember when you're saying early childhood, you're saying the early 1930s?
Yeah, 30s. 30s when I went to grammar school.
Right, okay.
And I'd walk up to Ridge Boulevard and along Ridge Boulevard to school.
Which school did you go to, Gigi?
Excuse me. 102 on 72nd and Ridge.
Mm-hmm.
At one time, it was a one building, an old building all by itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I went there, and I think to about third grade. I stayed there 8 years in that school,
Mm-hmm.
but then they built the addition to it.
Mm-hmm.
They built a brand new school, and you had to be in 6th grade, I think 6th, 7th, and 8th to go into that school.
Mm-hmm.
They kept it, you had to keep it so clean and all. And I remember walking to school on Ridge Boulevard. There's a great big empty lot. They were building, now I can't remember the name of the building, Flair Court.
Flair Court, okay, right.
Remember Flair Court?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember they tell us, be very careful, don't go near it. I remember a bunch of us kids would sneak over and look down to see the elevator with shafts, and look up. There was no danger, but we would look around and all.
So you did mischievous things,
Oh,
Mama?
yeah. Hey, I was normal. But we thought that was so exciting, watching what the men were doing.
Right. See the elevators and all.
Yeah.
Sure.
There was no elevators, it was just a shaft.
Just a shaft,
They were
okay.
just building it. And of course it was a beautiful apartment house when it finished because it had the only swimming pool in Bay Ridge, I think.
That's correct, yes, if I remember.
And now I understand they covered it over and there's no swimming pool. I don't know why not.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the insurance is too high today.
That could be. Who did you go to school with? Do you remember going to school with your brothers, or did...
Yes, well, my mother had a girl. She paid a girl to walk me to school the first year or so.
Uh-huh.
Then after we'd walk up and we'd meet other little friends.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes on a cold day she would drive us. At those days, my mother was driving.
Oh, really?
And not many people had cars. Not many women drove.
All right.
But on a very, very, very cold day, because Mom and Dad did not like to get up early.
They didn't?
No, they didn't get up early. But she would tell me, well, okay. Or she would pick me up if it was pouring rain or something.
Right.
And it was a long walk because we were at the very outer boundary
Uh-huh.
of the school. And I'd walk to school, and then we'd walk home for lunch,
Mm-hmm.
and walk back again.
Mm-hmm.
It
Do
was
you
nice.
remember you telling me one time ago that your grandmother Rose lived across the street?
My grandmother lived on Ridge Boulevard and 78th, right across the street from here.
Uh-huh.
And
In the apartment house across the
in the
street?
apartments, yes.
Wow,
For a while
okay.
she lived there, and I remember running away when I was always a scaredy cat at night. We always had a living maid, and I remember I must have been a bad kid.
Mm-hmm.
I remember running away, and my grandmother would answer the doorbell, and there I would be, and she would yell at me in Arabic, "Yay, what are you doing here?" I said, "I was afraid. I wanted to come to you. I love."
Now this is Rose or Fowl?
Rose
Rose
Azar.
Rose
Rose
Azar.
O'Gile Azar.
Okay.
And she and my Aunt Isabel was single, and they lived in the apartment together.
Uh-huh.
And I always ran away to her. I remember loving her.
Mm-hmm.
I remember her telling me little stories in Arabic about the asfuda, which is a bird, pecking at the window. And the bird lived in the house, and he put his money there, pennies on the windowsill, and someone stole them. So the next day he put thumbtacks all over his windowsill, and the thief got thumbtacks all over his fingers. And I said, oh, Grandma, tell me that story again. Kate did tell me the story.
Now
I used to think it was so wonderful.
She would tell it to you in Arabic?
English and Arabic.
Okay.
And I would understand her.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we had a nice childhood. On a snowy day when we got much older, 75th Street, Bay Ridge Avenue here.
Uh-huh.
There weren't many cars in those days. We'd take our sled. Every kid in the neighborhood would get their sled and we'd go sleigh riding down the 75th Street hill.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't bad going down, but it was a horror coming up. It was,
sure.
kind of steep. But
Right.
we had good times. We used to. We had roller skates. Many kids didn't. We didn't have bikes.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody had money in those days.
Except you. If you had a live-in maid,
Well,
and you had a mother who drove a car, you lived
yeah,
on 79th Street.
that's true. And we had two telephones, one upstairs and one downstairs.
Uh-huh.
I remember one day the teacher asked the kids in the class, how many people have telephones? I think only 5 of us had telephones,
Uh-huh.
the whole class.
Wow.
But, yeah, we had many things, even
Sure,
though
right,
things were bad.
87888.
Yeah, no, it was Atlantic 5, 9534, and I'll never forget it.
Wow.
Atlantic 5, 9534.
9534. All right.
Came back to me after many years.
Yeah, yeah,
And then later on it became a Shore Road number.
yeah. Huh.
But we had a lot of good times. There were a lot of empty lots, no houses built.
Uh-huh.
And we used to take our sleds and go down.
Uh-huh.
I remember one year I had my brother Floyd pull me on a sled and some lady started yelling at me, why are you making that child pull you? And I said, but he wants to. It didn't dawn on me what she meant, but
Really?
he wants to.
He wants to, really, really. Tell me about your brothers.
Oh, I had
you
my
and Joe.
brother Joe and I were the nearest in age, and of course we fought a lot.
Uh-huh.
And of course Floyd was the next. And then Butch was the baby, and he was very spoiled. And poor Floyd, Joe, Mama adored Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Joe was your slumly Joseph. She loved him.
Mm-hmm.
And of course Butchie was the baby, so he was a spoiled brat.
Mm-hmm.
And poor Floyd always got the worst of everything.
Mhm.
I used to feel sorry for him. I said, gee, And I always took his side. I remember that.
Uh-huh.
But Joe was a hard worker. He worked in the grocery store when he was very big for his age. I mean, he must have been about 11, 12 years old. He used to deliver groceries and make money.
Joe did, huh?
Yeah, he was a go-getter.
Mm-hmm. Always a salesman, perhaps? Always?
Well, no, I mean, he delivered groceries for money.
Oh, okay. Right, right.
And then later on, when things got bad and my father had to go on the road, Mama used to go to the office.
Uh-huh.
And then Joe would go in when he got into high school. He went into Manhattan to high school.
Right, he went to...
Oh,
I forgot the name.
No, not Holy Cross. La Salle Academy.
La Salle Academy, right, right.
Yeah.
That's the big.
So he went into Manhattan,
Mm-hmm.
and after work he would go to the office and help out.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
My father would be on the road. My mother would answer the phone, and he would tell my mother what to pack up and what to send, and Joe would help.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And I would go to school, and then when I come home, she'd tell me, "Well, start the supper."
Right.
She had everything ready. I didn't really do any cooking or anything.
Yeah.
And it was
So-
nice. And every Sunday, all my cousins would come over
Which
after
cousins?
church.
Do you remember which cousins would come?
My cousin Eleanor, my cousin Josephine, my cousin Evelyn,
Mm-hmm.
Lorraine and Claire, after a great many years, would come.
They would come here to Brooklyn from New York or from...
No, they finally moved here when they got out of orphan asylums. They were in orphanages.
Mm-hmm.
When they got older, then their mother got a furnished room here.
Mm-hmm.
So they used to come on Sundays and would all eat together.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, it was hard times, but there was always food.
Always food and
for
always family.
everybody. In fact, I met a girlfriend after about 40 years after we had gotten out of school.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, Gloria, I'll never forget your mother and father, how nice they were. I stopped by on a Sunday afternoon to pick up some homework from you, and your mother insisted I stay for dinner. I'll never forget that. And I looked at her.
It's normal. It was normal for us. To
It
be
was
able to
normal
do that.
for us. Yeah, we were so used to that. I was saying, gee, I can't believe that this is what she remembers so distinctly.
Yeah, it's kind of like Brother Floyd said, hello, settler.
Yeah.
Right, hello, settler,
Yes,
come
we
on in.
always had people in the house.
Right.
Always picked up strays.
Mm-hmm.
And during the war, whenever they'd find that there was an Arabic-speaking serviceman, how you found them, I don't know. But they'd turn up at our house for dinner.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
I don't know, by word of mouth, or somebody'd say, look, my nephew's going to Brooklyn, he's going to be there for a while in Brooklyn here at the Army base till they ship him out.
Go visit
gave
Joe
him-
and
Yeah,
Badir
they
and
give our
Joe.
telephone number. That's what all the Syrians were very clannish. We were
Uh-huh.
all Syrians. We weren't Lebanese at that time.
Right, right.
And if you knew you were going someplace, someone else would say, I have a brother, I have a cousin, I have an uncle, I'll give you their telephone number. So
Right.
it wasn't unusual.
Right, right, right.
And in a lot of the smaller towns, especially down south,
Uh-huh.
they would go to the Army base or the Naval base or whatever, and they'd ask if there are any Syrian children, boys there. And there were one place I remember one of my cousins saying it was a standing invitation every Sunday. All the Syrian boys were invited to his home for dinner.
Wow.
And you just went.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was great.
Do you know, that reminds me of a story you told me about the Ogiles and the Iceman, or the...
Oh, I don't remember that story.
Okay.
But someone told me that my grandmother,
This is Rose.
Rose, in those days, that was before my time, they used to have an Iceman. I still remember an Iceman coming on the block.
Mm-hmm.
He'd have a horse and a wagon of ice. Excuse me, the ice was covered with straw to keep it away from the sun, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And you would go to different homes that didn't have refrigerators. But my father was very, of course he loved cooking and we had so much food and all. He had one of the first commercial refrigerators ever made. He had the refrigerator in the kitchen, but the motor for the refrigerator was a great big huge thing in the basement.
Oh my gosh, for your refrigerator.
Yes, I remember that. And we had it forever, and he used to have a mechanic who used to fix it. Finally he said, Mr. Caton, after about 10, 15 years, get rid of it and get a regular refrigerator. I can't fix it anymore.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it was very, very, yes, we were lucky. We
Yeah.
always had a lot of things. And all our friends were always, always invited into the house.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these people, friends of my mother and father, we still know their children. And when we see each other, it's, you know, like you met a long-lost brother.
Yeah, yeah.
Even if you weren't that friendly with them.
The
just
fact
that-
that they were over the house and part of
Yeah,
the
and that
family.
their mother and father, like the
Uh-huh.
other day at my 70th birthday, Barbara Saman
Saman.
came. Her mother and I grew up together.
Mm-hmm.
Her mother and my mother were best friends, and her father and my father were best friends. And
These
when
are
I
the
s-
Jabales.
These are the Jabali families, George and Marie Jabali. And my mother and father were very, very good friends.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, all throughout my childhood. And Larissa was their oldest child, and she and I were good friends.
Mm-hmm. I hear stories about the Jabales that George never really knew how to read or write, but
He was
is that true?
sharp. Well, that's what I heard.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably true, but he was very sharp. He made a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
He was a very shrewd man, bought a lot of property. I think his family still owns shopping centers from him.
Mm-hmm.
He left it in trust for his grandchildren. And
Mm-hmm. I remember him to be a very pleasant man, always
always
happy,
laughing.
always laughing,
He
always
did a
loving
lot
life.
for the church. They have a cornerstone, Our Lady
The
of
church?
Lebanon Church.
Oh, Lady of Lebanon, okay.
On Remsen Street. The cornerstone is in memory of the Jabali family because I think he loaned the church the money to buy this building,
Uh-huh.
and then I think he donated the money.
Wow. Wow.
And the cornerstone of the church. And he,
Mhm.
of course, he always helped raise money.
Sure. Well, I remember them being really close to the family, and that was
Yeah.
nice. I wanted to go back to that Iceman story because it was one of the Ogiles who came up from Kansas,
Oh yeah.
who was took you to baseball games.
He used to love the
Who is-
Brooklyn Dodgers. His
Mhm.
name was John Ogile.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd come on business every now and then. I don't know what kind of a business. He'd come into New York maybe every few years.
Mm-hmm.
And he loved the Brooklyn Dodgers. And one year he took me, there was a set of 3 games, and he took me to every one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I heard they named him John when he was born because when either his father or someone was at my grandmother's house, because she was an Ogile,
Mm-hmm.
she said, oh, I love the name John, because she had a nice man called John.
Right.
And they liked the name, so they named him after the
The
Iceman,
Iceman.
John.
I don't know what his real name was. I think I have that somewhere. But when I called up the Ojals in Kansas, that's how they remembered Angel
I
and
have my
Badia.
glass of water, please, David.
That's how the Ojals remembered Angel and Badia was by the
Isn't that
Iceman.
funny?
So that just
No, just the water.
more. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
That's very neat. Oh, did you all go on vacations?
Yes.
Where'd you go?
What they did, I tell you, the Arabic people were very clannish.
Mm-hmm.
Years ago, they used to go to a place in the Catskills called, not Tannersville, Haynes Falls.
Mm-hmm.
And they used to rent houses, the whole group, a bunch of families would go up, they'd rent a house for the summer,
Mm-hmm.
and then they had a hotel there. Some people stayed at the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
I remember staying at the hotel. I don't remember the house. But I do know that my father did rent a house one year. The year my grandfather and grandmother came from Syria, and my grandfather came, they took him up to the country,
Mm-hmm.
and he had terrible pains, and they rushed him to the hospital, and he died. He had an appendicitis that, I guess they didn't have penicillin. I know they didn't have penicillin
Right, got
in those
infected
days.
and then he had trouble. So you used to go to Haynes Falls.
Haynes Falls. We had such good times.
How'd you get there? By train or
No,
by
my
car?
father had a car.
Was
He
it a
always
long
had
drive?
a car.
Long
Yeah.
drive?
Even now, it's about a 3-hour drive, 3-hour drive.
Uh-huh.
In those days, there were no. You went through all the small towns.
Uh-huh.
But there wasn't that much traffic, but there were a lot of traffic lights. I used to hate it because I always got car sick.
So you're the cause of the car sickness in the family, huh?
But before we went away, my father would drive to Atlantic Avenue where all the Syrian stores were, and he'd buy groceries to take with us.
Uh-huh.
Olives and cheese, I guess. I don't know what else. But I do remember going into the store. One of them was Alice Howard's father. She's married. Alice Howard's now married to my Uncle Philip.
Oh, okay.
They've had their 50th anniversary already. And I remember looking down into these big, huge barrels to see the olives in the bottom of it. And I thought it was so great. Papa, can I see the olives? My head in the olive barrel.
And you get high off the smell of the olives, right?
And then they had the most delicious pastry shop. It was called Alwon,
Alwon.
Alwan.
Right.
They were Mohammedans.
Mm-hmm.
And they made the most delicious pastry that was worldwide known.
Yeah.
They made apricot ice in the summer. Till this day, I can still taste.
So can I. I remember you taking me to
remember
the... Oh,
it? Yeah.
sure, the apricot ice cream and apricot ice. Oh, it's wonderful.
Oh, yeah,
And the
he made the
pistachio.
most, yes, and the pistachio ice cream. It had a very peculiar taste. They used
And texture.
texture, yes. It wasn't like our American ice cream. But it was delicious. But this man died. There were 7 brothers, and they wouldn't give the secrets of their pastries or ice cream to anybody. And they died with the secret. No one knows his formulas. It was so delicious.
So it's no longer there, huh?
No. There
Wow.
are other stores, but no one ever made it like a win.
Well, how long did you go away to Haynes Falls?
Well, maybe a month. Maybe the
Uh-huh.
summer. I don't really
And you went with your
recall.
brothers, Joe and Butch and
Yeah.
Floyd?
All of us would go up as a family.
Uh-huh.
And we had a wonderful time up there playing. I remember running around and playing with the kids.
Uh-huh.
And you know, like we didn't have a lot of clothes. I think we only owned 2 or 3 outfits of clothes anyhow. Nobody had more than that.
Right.
So it wasn't a big hassle taking clothes.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how my mother washed up there.
Uh-huh. Well, I think you remember telling us you didn't wash your underwear that often years
No,
ago.
those days you didn't. You
Mhm.
took a bath once a week.
Whether you had to or not.
Yeah,
And nobody
which-
smelled.
I don't know what happened.
Things changed a bit.
Yeah,
huh?
my mother never had a washing machine. She used to send her laundry out every Monday, and it would come. Some would come back wet wash. That
Uh-huh.
meant they would wash them, but you would have to hang them up and dry them.
Mm-hmm.
And the sheets came back flat and
Mhm.
pressed. The
Mm-hmm.
sheets and the shirts
So that was here in Brooklyn.
in Brooklyn.
Well, what did your maid do? You had a maid, you say?
Oh, she cleaned the house and she babysat, I guess.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. She
Yeah.
didn't do laundry, no.
Yeah.
She
Well-
had off every other Sunday and every Thursday.
And she was Arabic?
No, well, sometimes they would bring in imports, you know,
Uh-huh.
from the other. But no, we had especially Spanish people.
Uh-huh. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
One of my father's friends went to one of the islands, did business there, and he used to bring somebody home for every, bring these women. And they only got paid about $10 a month, George.
Mm-hmm.
They got room and board.
Mm-hmm. Where do they stay in the house?
Well, we used to have that little breakfast room. Remember that little breakfast room we call Teddy's room now?
Yeah.
That's where they slept years ago.
Oh, okay.
And then when we got a little bigger and used that room, then they would sleep in the basement on a cot.
Wow.
And she wasn't allowed to use our bathroom. I don't know how she ever took a bath. We had the wash tubs in the basement. She must have used the basement bathtub.
Wow.
When I think of it now, it was sad,
Yeah, yeah.
We had that Garcia. I remember loving her. And then we had a few black ladies. I'll never forget one. Her name was Viola Latricia Bowles. I'll never forget
I bet
the
you
name.
your brothers love that name, right?
Yeah. Oh, well, we used to call her Viola Licorice Balls.
Licorice.
Yeah. But we had a nice life. We could never complain.
Except your father wasn't around all the time.
No, but men in those days never played with their kids. He traveled a lot on the road as a salesman. I mean, we were there, but that's it. We were just there.
Right.
He never sat and talked to us or put us on his lap or anything like that. No.
Yeah.
I don't think he liked to show warmth, and it wasn't in him to.
Well, did you see his brothers much, or his sister? Did they come? Were they part of the family a lot?
When we were very young, and his mother came from Syria, we weren't very young. Floyd was born. I must have been about 5 years old then. On Sundays, he would drop my mother off at church, and he'd take us to visit his mother. And then she had my single uncles living there, and I think they used to hate it when we went there because we'd wake them up. And he said,
this is
a
Emil
penny,
and,
go away,
Emil and Philip and...
yeah, first, the older brothers, too.
Okay. What do you remember about your grandmother, Nabiha?
Nabiha. Nothing too much. I know she was alive till you were born. But we were never close. First of all, she didn't like girls. And I was the first one. I was a girl, so she didn't like me. So instinctively, I hated her.
Oh, really?
She
instinctively.
Well, when somebody loves you.
Right.
She never hugged me. I remember I dutifully gave her a kiss as we went in and as we left. But she never hugged me and said granddaughter or anything, I was her first grandchild. But there was no warmth between us. Whereas I remember my mother's mother, I hear other people telling me she was a witch. But she loved me, and I remember loving her.
But not Nabiha.
No, I don't know why.
What do you know about Nabiha?
Things that I heard about her?
Yeah, what do you know about Nabiha? What do you know other than not so much what you heard?
Well, I don't know. What people tell me, they all seem to have loved her. And I really don't know too much. I do know that she was the first woman in her hometown to unveil. And her brothers and her uncles had to escort her through the town so they wouldn't beat her and stone her.
I've heard that, right, yeah.
Yeah, and I heard that she was very, very intelligent. This I don't remember because, of course, she always spoke in Arabic. And to me, anyone who spoke Arabic wasn't intelligent. They didn't understand English, you know what I mean? I mean, as a kid.
Right.
We were not close.
Did she cook well? Did she sew?
I heard she was a good cook.
But she never fed you?
No, we used to go there, I tell you, Sunday morning before while my mother was in church.
Right. And that was it?
That was it. My brother Joe remembers her making some kind of a special kibbeh.
Right.
But I really and truly don't remember that part.
And she was here for a long time then?
Yeah, I mean...
20 years or so she was here?
Yeah, until you were born.
So did she go to did she welcome George or...
You want to know, George? I have no recollection of her. I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't know why. She's completely out of my mind. When you were born, I don't remember her coming to visit. She must have, but I truly don't remember.
Okay.
I really don't know.
Were you in touch with her family, the Gorabs, at all? Or
no. There's a few of them that used to come and visit Mama. And I knew there were certain ones, the twins Mama liked. And there were some that had red-headed children. Mother was very friendly with their families.
Right.
They didn't visit like every week or anything, but you know, maybe every 6 months or so.
Okay. So there's really very little awareness or contact that you had with Nabiha other than visiting
No,
on
no, I
Sunday
don't know. I
morning?
guess because she must have made a remark. I was a very sensitive child.
Mm-hmm.
I remember feeling very hurt when people would say things. Like my brother Joe was a beauty. He was very handsome. And I'll never I forget, people would come up and say, isn't it a shame he's the boy and she's the girl? It should have been the other way around. He's so pretty.
Oh, wow.
Oh, look at his beautiful hair. Look at her straight hair. I remember this to this day.
Wow.
Yeah, and I remember, I don't know whether it was somebody telling me when my grandmother looked at me, she went like this, you know, because I was a girl. But I guess this must have been behind my mind all the time. I could never appreciate her.
Yeah, so you felt rejected by her,
Of
not
course,
nothing.
of course. And yet from other people I heard how wonderful she was. To me, I didn't like her, and it's a shame.
And you felt she didn't like you.
Yes, yes. I mean, there was no warmth.
What about her husband, Shaker?
He came, I told you, I don't even remember him. He died within 2 months after he landed in the United States.
Right, so you don't really remember
I have
much.
no, I was about 5 years old then.
Did you know his brothers, Camel or Salim?
I remember Camel. I remember Papa taking us when we were very young. We would get into the car and we'd drive to the ferry. And in the summertime, the ferry line was so long, you'd have to wait till the ferry came and they unloaded the other cars and then they would load us. And we'd go to Islay, New Jersey to visit Uncle Camel. I remember being welcomed there. Poor Uncle Camel had 11 children, and when his youngest baby was a few months old, his wife was killed by a car. So the older girls took over the house. But I always remember being welcomed there. And I remember enjoying going there. The only thing was, the minute we got to the stupid ferry, I'd throw up.
You got sick. What do you remember about Camel? Do you remember when
I remember he was a nice man. I remember he had a sweet face. And he was I remember he talked quietly. The Catons as a whole are loud.
No, not us, not the Catons.
The voices are loud. Even me, I know.
We're real loud,
But
right?
I remember liking him very much.
Okay, okay.
And Uncle Aziz, his brother, I think. Aziz,
No. Aziz would be Salim's son.
Oh, Salim's son. I think I was in awe of him.
Aziz?
I don't know why, yes. I think he was his wife was, my mother was refined. I can't say refined. She was very, I don't know the word. You know, you'd have to be careful how you acted in front of her. But she was nice, but I remember,
Very critical.
not critical, very proper.
Proper, okay.
Yeah.
And
Not always proper, but you could be yourself, you know what I mean?
And Aziz was proper.
Yes.
Do you remember Salim, his father?
No.
Never had contact with
No.
him. And I guess your great aunts, Blvd or Selma.
No, I don't remember them.
No.
No.
Okay.
I remember some of my father's relatives coming over, and one of them was a very cranky man, and I don't know what I did, and he yelled at me, and all I remember is I hid all day, and they looked for me, and I wouldn't come out. I was under something. I would not come out for the whole day till he left. I stayed there. He hurt my feelings. He yelled at me.
And you don't remember who he was?
Not really.
Okay.
I remember he was cranky. And I remember, should I tell you never getting a birthday present?
No, tell me.
Well, when I was a kid, I never got a birthday present. And I'd say after I got to know what a birthday was, because we never had birthday cakes or anything. We just never celebrated. But my brothers always got a birthday present. And Joe's birthday was February 28th, and he always got a birthday present.
From whom? From your
From my
parents?
family, I guess. You never got many presents. If you got one Christmas present, we were lucky, you know? But I remember one day, I must have been about 12 or 11 maybe 10, I don't know, crying the whole day. Nobody told me happy birthday, and no one gave me a birthday present.
Oh,
I remember going to one of the neighbors' house and crying in their driveway. I think she was the girl who used to walk me to school. And mother came out and said, "What's the matter?" And I said, "Nobody gave me a birthday present." And I cried. finally, and I said, "Where's your daughter?" And she says, "Well, she'll be back in a little while." I've forgotten who the babysitter was. And she came back and she bought me a little dollar present, I think.
Wow.
Maybe a quarter present. That was the
Wow.
I remember, I used to get so upset I never got a birthday present.
So it's tough being a woman in an Arab family.
Yeah. Well,
Floyd talked about that a little bit.
yeah.
Tell us about
well, you
being a woman.
know, you're the oldest.
Mm-hmm.
You should have more sense. You're the girl. You have to help.
Mm-hmm.
You have to give in. You have to get up and do dishes, and you have to do this. Brother Joe never did dishes or any helping around the house. Floyd always did.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I didn't mind that much.
It's
that
that
part
you
of
were expected to do it. It sounds
Yeah.
like is what
I
bothered
mean,
you.
this is what, you know, the girls did the dishes. That's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
But, no, that didn't bother me too much.
Well, what bothered you?
I think not being loved more than anything.
Mm-hmm. By your dad or by...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that always, till the day he died,
Yeah.
I never felt he liked it. He loved me, I don't know. He never showed any affection.
He
But
didn't
he
know how to
didn't
show
show
it.
it to the boys either.
Right. He didn't know how to show it, probably.
Yeah. Well,
And he did say before you died that he did. Before he
before he died, the day I went to visit him in the hospital, he looked good. I didn't think he was going to die. I walked out of the room where he was. He was still in the emergency room, and I told him I was going to go to Florida and I wouldn't see him, that, you know, I would call. I walked out of the room and I went back and I said, "You know, Dad, I really do love you." And he
Mhm.
opened his eyes and he looked at me and he says, "And I really love you." The first time he ever said it. And the nurse stood there and the tears went to her eyes. She said, "That was so beautiful." And I looked at her and I said to myself, son of a gun, it's the first time he ever said it.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
But, yeah, he wasn't affectionate.
Yeah.
I mean, he would smile at us sometimes, you know.
Right. Right.
But even with report cards, I'd get great marks, A in effort, A in conduct, and B+, which was very, very good in those days. Why didn't you get all A's, you know?
Mm-hmm. Was the same expected of the boys or not?
I don't remember, but I remember them saying it to me.
Right. Right. And so that
You
was
know?
that was tough. Was your mom
Yeah.
supportive? Was Angela supportive?
No, she would cuddle. But even she would say, "Why didn't you get better? You could do better."
Mm-hmm.
I said, I was so proud. I was one of the few who got A+A, A+B+A.
Yeah.
I was so proud of it, you know. And then you go home and then you put down.
Yeah.
But I guess they didn't really realize what they were doing.
Right. Right. Wow. Wow.
I always said they should give courses and becoming a parent.
Mm-hmm.
I feel sorry for
agree
you,
with that.
George. Because I experimented on you. I didn't know anything about a baby. Never saw a baby until I saw you.
I think you did okay with me.
Well,